So remember, in the big picture of Revelation, which I shared with you yesterday, we already did chapter 9, but we're right now in the middle of this section. Lost humanity seeks to rule themselves. We start in chapter 10, and we're going to be all the way through this section today. They reject God's Messiah. I mean, they crucified him, they hated him, they spat upon him. So God sends the fake Jesus. Never forget that the seals were broken by Christ, and the first seal, the white horse, is representative of the global delusion and deception that 2 Thessalonians 2 talks about. God actually sends a fake Jesus because people don't want the real one, so he just gives them what they want. Do you know what the worst thing you could ever do is? Whatever you want. That's what Romans 1. The theme of Romans 1, if I was titling it, the result of doing or getting to do whatever you want to do. You know, most people want to be free so they can do whatever they want. The more you do whatever you want, the more you slide. Because you and I were wired not the right direction. We're not wired to seek God. Remember what it says in the Psalms? There's none, Psalm 14, that seeks after God. There's none that seeks after God. Paul took that verse and went on and said, we're all falling short of the glory of God. And so lost humanity wants to rule themselves, have their own way. They want to reject the Messiah, the Christos, Christ, the fulfillment of God's promises. So God sends them the fake Jesus, the beast, the worst human who ever lives. That's how he's described. The Antichrist, as we most call him, has 33 different titles in the Bible. And all of them are manifestations of Satan. But he leads humanity to destruction by becoming their visible God. Now, humanity already has a God. Paul told us that, Ephesians 2. The God of this world, the prince of the power of the air. Well, basically, what we're seeing in Revelation 11:13 is the war that's going on in heaven. Chapter 12, we're going to actually see that. And what happens, and that's where the third of the angels is revealed. But did you know the war in heaven is tied to World War III? I mean, World War III, some people say it's already started. But I'm talking about the final war. The war that involves Iran and Jerusalem and Satan's endless hatred of the Jews. And we'll go into that. So let's start going into that. Look at chapter 11. Here we go. And what's so exciting is that when you read the Bible, it's like you're reading tomorrow's news, not today's, okay? And I was given a read. Oh, this is still the eyewitness on the ground report. Just imagine John is a CNN or a whoever, whatever news network you watch, reporter that's right on the scene of something happening. That's what God presents in Revelation. John is right in the center of all this, and he was given a reed like a measuring rod, and the angel stood saying, "Rise and measure the temple of God, the altar, and those who worship there." Now, John is in the future. And what's so interesting is everybody that was getting this letter was going to be scratching their head. Why? Because this letter was written sometime in the 90s, and the temple, this one right here, temple number 2, was gone. Titus destroyed it. His father, Vespasian, started the destruction. His brother, Domitian, reaped the benefits of the destruction. But Titus, the general from the Mount of Olives, oversaw the destruction of Jerusalem and the killing of 1 million Jews. So by the time John's writing this, they're going, the temple and those who worship there, the temple of God, it's gone. You see, the first one was gone when Nebuchadnezzar came in 586 BC. The second one was gone when the Romans came in AD 70. But John tells us, and that's our first lesson in Revelation 11, that there's a third temple coming that's going to stand in Jerusalem. The first temple was Solomon's, built between 970 and 950. The second temple was Herod's. Remember, 46 years the temple was being built. Remember when Jesus said, "Destroy this temple and I'll rebuild it in 3 days," and the people went, 46 years? Yeah. It had started in 20 BC, and when Jesus said that in 26 AD, it had been continuously built. And any of you that go to Israel, if Mark Strout takes you down the rabbinic tunnel, you'll see right where the workmen stopped. They were going chunk, 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 chunk on the stones of the walkway called the rabbinic passageway, and they just stopped, put their tools down, it's unfinished. It's amazing to see that this temple was being built even during the time of Christ. But there's coming a third temple. And that third temple is during the tribulation, and then of course that gets dissolved when everything else gets dissolved, as 2 Peter 3 tells us, and there's going to be this final temple on earth before heaven where God is the temple, and that's going to be in the millennium. So basically, there's a future Jewish temple during the tribulation in Jerusalem. That statement I just said that you see in front of you is why the whole world right now is anxious about Israel. Because the Israelis are focused on being this nuisance to the whole world. Because there aren't Hittites from the Bible anymore. There are not Amorites from the Bible anymore. There are not Jebusites and Perizzites and, all those termites, whatever that, you remember from your Sunday school days. They're all gone. And the Philistines are too. But the Jews, since 2166 BC, when Abraham was born, are still with us. And there's no group of people that have been more hunted down, pogromed, that's what the Russians did. They tried to exterminate them through pogroms. Holocaust, that's what the Nazis did, that they tried to exterminate them in World War II. But it wasn't just them. The Romans tried to exterminate them. You know what I mean? The Persians, do you remember the whole Mordecai thing with the horrors of him having to save his people with Queen Esther? The whole time, it's Satan's desire to erase the Jews. Why? Because God staked his name on them. By the way, if you understand your systematic theology, God sovereignly elected Israel. And if you know anything from systematic theology, anything God sovereignly elects can't be broken. Sovereign means he's all-powerful, and elect means he chose. So he all-powerfully, in the Old Testament, chose Israel. And Satan knows enough of the Bible to know that. And so there's a future Jewish temple, which really bothers Satan to even think that's possible. And it's during the tribulation, which really makes us wonder how, since there are only 6-7 million Jews and there are like 1 billion Muslims, how can those 7 million Jews move the second most holy spot on earth to the Muslims and put their temple up? Because, it seems like something like that's going to happen. How do we know there's a temple during the tribulation? Because Daniel saw it in Daniel 9 when he predicts the future. Jesus saw it. That's the whole context of Matthew 24. Jesus speaks from a Jewish context, and he says, when you Jews see the abomination that causes desolation standing in the temple. Now, Jesus was referring to a historic event. He was referring to when the temple during the Maccabean period, that's where we get Hanukkah and all that, the December Jewish holiday, there was this bad guy called Antiochus Epiphanes. And Antiochus Epiphanes sacrificed a pig on the altar in Jerusalem in the temple to desecrate it. And so it just made the Jews so mad, they rose up and they fought him off, and it started the Maccabean revolt. And that historic event prompts Daniel, in Daniel 9, 10, and 11, to describe, he said, that event is foreshadowing what Jesus talked about. Because Jesus talked about the abomination that causes desolation in the future. So in 26 to 30 AD, Jesus said, sometime in the future, there's going to be a temple here, and someone like Antiochus, only he's going to be from the Roman Empire that destroyed the temple.